I watched through a Nanny cam app as my husband kissed my best friend in our Denver kitchen while she held our 6-month-old son, wearing my robe, in my house, like she'd replaced me entirely. But the kiss wasn't the worst part. It was what I heard next. "The babies think you're mommy now," Trevor said, his hand on her waist like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Then they sat at my kitchen table with my expensive wine and discussed their plan. Use my postpartum depression diagnosis to declare me an unfit mother, take my sons, keep my house, and leave me with nothing while they played happy family with my children. What would you do if you discovered the two people you trusted most were conspiring to steal your children and convince the world you were crazy? Have you ever opened your heart to someone who used your vulnerability as a weapon? Have you ever trusted a friend so completely that you never saw the knife coming? Has anyone ever made you doubt your own sanity to cover their lies? This isn't just about cheating. This is about a calculated plan to destroy a Black woman's credibility, weaponize postpartum depression, and use the legal system to steal my children while making me look like the villain. What I uncovered over the next 72 hours didn't just expose their affair. It revealed a conspiracy involving falsified medical records, financial fraud, and a pattern Trevor had used before. Stick around, because the revenge I executed was so precise, so devastating they never saw it coming. Hit subscribe right now, because this story has more twists than a Colorado mountain road. And I promise you, the ending will leave you cheering. But before I tell you how I took back everything they tried to steal, let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began, 4 years ago in Aspen, when I thought I was marrying my soulmate. Chapter 1. The Perfect Life, Before the Fall. 550 words. 4 years ago, I married into Colorado wealth and thought I'd beaten every odd stacked against a Black girl from Detroit, until the day I realized my fairy tale was someone else's long con. The Aspen Chapel was all white pine and mountain views, autumn gold aspens framing stained glass windows. I stood in my grandmother's refurbished wedding dress, holding white roses, watching Trevor cry actual tears when I walked down the aisle. His family sat stiff as mannequins on one side while my small crew from Detroit cheered loud enough for both sides combined. My grandmother Dorothy raised me in southwest Detroit after my parents died in a car crash when I was 7. She cleaned houses for wealthy families and made sure I understood 2 things. Education was my ticket out, and I should never apologize for being excellent. I became a nurse because I wanted to help people the way no one could help my parents. I met Trevor Mitchell at a Denver Health Medical Center charity gala in October 2019. He was there representing Mitchell Properties, his family's real estate development company worth somewhere north of $50 million. I was serving on the host committee, one of 3 Black nurses asked to add diversity to the photos. "You're too smart to be wasting time at these things," he said, handing me champagne. Those blue eyes held mine with what felt like genuine interest. "And you're too rich to be talking to the help," I shot back. He laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle wealthy white men usually gave. "I like you already." 3 months later, we were inseparable. Trevor pursued me with intensity that felt flattering instead of suffocating. He showed up at the hospital with coffee. He asked questions about my patients and actually listened. He met Grandma Dorothy and charmed her completely. "That boy sees you, baby," Grandma said after their first meeting. "But watch his family. Money like that don't share easy." She was right. His mother, Patricia Mitchell, smiled with her mouth, but never her eyes. At our first family dinner in their Aspen estate, she asked if I was planning to keep working after marriage, with a tone that suggested nursing was a hobby, not a career. His father, Richard, was worse. Constant questions about my background, comments about urban culture, compliments about how articulate I was. I heard every word they didn't say, but Trevor defended me. He told his parents I was brilliant, dedicated, exactly what he wanted. "She's not like other women," he'd say, and I thought he meant it as a compliment. Our wedding night in the St. Regis Resort, he undressed me slowly by the fireplace, whispering how beautiful my brown skin looked against the white sheets. "You're everything I never knew I needed," he breathed, and I believed him because his touch felt like worship. Have you ever ignored red flags because you wanted the dream to be real? Have you ever been the first in someone's family and felt the weight of representing your entire race? Drop a comment if you know that pressure. 2 years into our marriage, when I told him I was pregnant with twins, Trevor's reaction wasn't joy, it was calculation. "We should update our estate planning," he said before even hugging me. "Protect the boy's future." At the time, I thought he was being responsible. Now I know he was already setting the trap. They say pregnancy reveals a man's true character. Mine revealed I'd married a stranger who saw my trauma as opportunity. Denver Health's maternity ward smelled like antiseptic and fear. I remember the ceiling tiles blurring as doctors shouted about my blood pressure, about hemorrhaging, about how close I came to leaving my babies motherless before they even took their first breath. Trevor's face hovered above me, pale and terrified. Or was it something else I was too weak to recognize? The twin pregnancy in 2023 was brutal from the start. I worked until my 7th month, taking double shifts when I could because Trevor kept talking about preparing for college funds and maintaining our lifestyle. Morning sickness lasted all day. My feet swelled so badly I couldn't fit into my nursing shoes. But the delivery was where everything changed. Mason came first, screaming and healthy. Michael got stuck. My blood pressure spiked. Internal bleeding started. The last thing I remember before they put me under was Trevor's voice saying, "Save the babies first." I woke up 2 days later. The twins were in NICU. Trevor sat beside my bed looking exhausted, holding my hand. "You scared me," he said. "I thought I lost you." Recovery was hell. Postpartum depression hit me like a freight train. I'd stare at my sons and feel nothing, just emptiness where love should be. The guilt was crushing. What kind of mother doesn't feel connected to her own children? After the twins came home, intimacy became another thing I failed at. When Trevor reached for me in bed 6 weeks postpartum, my body felt like it belonged to someone else, stitched, stretched, exhausted. "It's okay," he whispered, pulling back with understanding that seemed so genuine. "We have time." He kissed my forehead and rolled over. I didn't know then that he was already getting what he needed elsewhere. Trevor started suggesting I needed professional help. "It's not weakness to get therapy, babe. You almost died. You're dealing with trauma." He recommended his therapist, Dr. Nanny, Patricia Chen, who had an office downtown. "She's great with postpartum issues. My buddy's wife saw her." I went because I was desperate to feel normal again. Dr. Chen was professional, clinical, asking detailed questions about my thoughts, my bond with the twins, whether I ever felt like they'd be better off without me. "These sessions are confidential, right?" I asked during our 3rd meeting. "Of course," she said. But something in her smile felt rehearsed. The medication she prescribed made me foggy. Trevor encouraged me to take it religiously. "You need to get better for the boys," he'd say. For any mothers watching, did postpartum depression make you feel like you were failing? Did anyone use your struggles against you? Share your experience below because we need to talk about how mental health becomes a weapon in custody battles. The therapist Trevor insisted I see, Dr. Patricia Chen, had an office in the same building as Mitchell Properties. She prescribed medication I wasn't sure I needed and took notes during sessions that felt more like interrogations than therapy. "Tell me about your thoughts regarding the babies," she'd say, pen poised like a weapon. "Do you ever feel like they'd be better off without you?" I should have realized then. Every word was being documented for a purpose that had nothing to do with my healing. Rachel Morrison flew in from D.C. with 2 suitcases and a smile that could sell ice to Colorado in winter. I hugged her at the airport like she was saving my life, not planning to steal it. Our Cherry Creek mansion felt less empty with Rachel there, her laugh filling the marble-floored kitchen, her hands folding tiny onesies. I was too exhausted to manage, her voice singing to Mason and Michael in a key that sounded like home. She made homemade baby food while I worked 12-hour shifts saving other people's children, and I was grateful. God help me. I was grateful for the woman who was stealing my place. Rachel and I met at a Howard University nursing conference in 2014. We bonded over being Black women navigating predominantly white hospitals, shared war stories about difficult patients and racist colleagues, stayed in touch through texts and occasional visits. When she called in September 2024 saying she'd quit her DC hospital job and needed a place to crash while figuring things out, I didn't hesitate. "Come stay with us," I said. "We have plenty of room, and honestly, I could use the help with the twins." Trevor seemed thrilled. "That's perfect timing. You need support, and Rachel's a nurse. She knows what she's doing with babies." Rachel arrived on a Friday. By Monday, she'd taken over the nursery routine like she'd been there from the beginning. She knew exactly how Mason liked to be rocked, that Michael needed his bottle warmed to a specific temperature. She was better at calming them than I was, and that realization cut deeper than I wanted to admit. "You're amazing with them," I told her one evening, watching her effortlessly soothe both crying babies while I stood there feeling useless. "It's easier when you're not their mom," she said, smiling. "No pressure, no guilt. You're doing great, Tanya. You just need rest." Trevor and Rachel developed an easy rapport. They'd joke in the kitchen while preparing bottles. He'd ask her opinion on everything from baby sleep schedules to what takeout to order. When I worked night shifts, they'd text me updates together, photos of the twins, funny messages, reassurances that everything was fine. One evening I came home early and found Trevor and Rachel on the couch, the twins asleep between them like a portrait of domestic bliss. The way his hand rested on the cushion near her shoulder, the way she laughed at his joke, something shifted in my gut. That night in bed, I reached for Trevor with sudden urgency, needing to reclaim something I couldn't name. He responded with surprise and intensity, whispering, "I missed you," against my throat. But afterward, I noticed his phone lighting up with messages. He tilted away from my view. "Am I paranoid?" I asked my coworker Rita during a break. "Rachel's been so helpful, but sometimes I feel like she's taking over." Rita, a mother of 3 and veteran nurse, looked at me carefully. "Trust your gut, girl. Always trust your gut." But guilt ate at me. Rachel was my friend. She'd dropped everything to help me. What kind of ungrateful person suspects their friend of crossing boundaries? Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own home? Like someone was slowly replacing you and everyone pretended not to notice? Tell me in the comments, am I crazy or was my instinct screaming truth? 3 weeks before I installed the Nanny cam, Rachel pulled me aside after a particularly hard night with the twins. "Tanya, honey," she said, her voice dripping concern, "I'm worried about you. You seem disconnected from the boys. Maybe you should talk to Trevor's therapist more often. Get the help you need?" Her hand on my arm felt like ice. When I looked in her eyes, searching for my friend, I saw something else, something that looked almost like victory. But I pushed the thought away because doubting Rachel felt like doubting myself. That was exactly what they wanted. My husband convinced me to sign a postnuptial agreement for the boys' protection. I signed it thinking I was securing their future, not signing away my rights to fight for them. Gregory Hartman's law office sat on the 23rd floor of a downtown Denver high-rise, all glass and steel, and the kind of cold that has nothing to do with temperature. The postnuptial agreement was 67 pages of legal language that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. Trevor sat beside me, his hand on my knee, while Hartman explained clauses about asset protection and custody arrangements in worst-case scenarios. "This is standard for families with significant assets," Hartman said in that smooth lawyer voice. "It protects the children's inheritance and ensures stability in any unfortunate circumstances. Trevor squeezed my hand. It's just paperwork, babe. My dad insists on it for estate planning. Nothing's going to happen to us. But if something did, this makes sure the boys are taken care of. I was 6 months postpartum, still foggy from Dr. Chen's medications, exhausted from working and pumping breast milk during breaks. The words on the page blurred together. Primary custody, psychological evaluation, fitness determination, asset distribution. What does this section mean? I asked, pointing to page 43. The part about custody reverting to the father in cases of maternal mental health concerns? That's just if you were to become seriously ill, Hartman explained. Incapacitated in some way. It protects the children from being placed in foster care if something catastrophic happened. Trevor pulled me close. Nothing's going to happen. But if it did, wouldn't you want to know Mason and Michael would stay with me instead of going into the system? When he put it that way, how could I argue? I signed on page 67, my hand shaking slightly, while Hartman and his assistant witnessed. That night, Trevor made love to me with an intensity that felt almost desperate. "Thank you for trusting me," he whispered as he moved inside me, his hands gripping my hips hard enough to leave marks. "Thank you for protecting our family." His eyes were closed, and I remember thinking, is he even seeing me right now? Or someone else? Rachel was extra attentive the next few days. She made my favorite meals, told me how proud she was of me for taking care of legal stuff even while dealing with everything else, reassured me I was doing great. "Trevor's lucky to have you," she said one evening while we folded baby clothes. "A lot of women would have fought him on that post-nuptial thing." "Why would I fight him?" I asked. "It's protecting the boys." Her smile was strange. "Exactly. You always put them first. Have you ever signed something you didn't fully understand because someone you loved told you it was fine? Have you ever realized too late that trust can be a signature on your own prison sentence? Share below if you've been there. A week after signing the post-nuptial agreement, I found Rachel in Trevor's home office late at night, papers spread across his desk. "Oh, you startled me," she laughed, gathering documents quickly. "Trevor asked me to organize some files for his meeting tomorrow." But I saw what was on top before she covered it. A document titled Psychological Evaluation Tanya Brooks Mitchell with Dr. Chen's letterhead, my name, my mental health. In Rachel's hands in my husband's office at 11 p.m. "Rachel," I said slowly, "why do you have my therapy records?" She smiled, sweet as poison. "These aren't yours, honey. This is just research Trevor's doing for a client with a similar situation. Custody case, I think." But we both knew she was lying. That was the night I ordered the nanny cam. I installed a camera to check on my babies during my nursing shifts. Instead, I watched my entire life get dissected by the two people I trusted most while they planned my destruction. I sat in my Honda Civic 2 blocks from my mansion, the November Denver cold seeping through the windows, watching my phone screen like it was a horror movie I couldn't turn off. The nanny cam showed my living room in perfect HD, the cream leather couch I'd picked out, the photos of our wedding on the mantel, the twin bassinets by the window, and in the center of my life, Rachel held my son while my husband kissed her, like they'd been doing this forever. November 3rd, 2024, a Tuesday. I told Trevor I was working a 12-hour shift at Denver Health. Instead, I drove around the block, parked 2 streets over, and opened the Nanny Cam app I'd secretly installed 3 days earlier. The camera was hidden in a decorative bookshelf aimed at the living room and kitchen area. I'd positioned it carefully to capture the twins' play area, telling myself it was just to check on them during work, but deep down I knew I was checking on something else. At 9:47 a.m., Rachel came downstairs in my bathrobe, my purple silk robe that Trevor bought me for our anniversary. She walked into the kitchen where Trevor was making coffee, and he turned to her with a smile I recognized, the smile he used to give me. The worst part wasn't the kiss. It was the intimacy after. The way Trevor's hand slid down Rachel's back with ownership, the way she leaned into him with familiarity. When he pulled her closer and whispered something that made her laugh, then kiss him deeper while still holding Mason, I understood. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was routine. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. Bile rose in my throat. I pushed open the car door and vomited onto the Denver street, tears streaming down my face. But I didn't drive away. I didn't confront them. Something in me, maybe Grandma Dorothy's voice, maybe pure survival instinct, told me to watch, to document, to learn exactly what I was up against. I forced myself to keep watching. An hour later, after they put the twins down for a nap, Trevor and Rachel sat at my kitchen table with wine. My wine, a $300 bottle from his parents' vineyard, and that's when I heard it. Trevor opened his laptop and Rachel leaned over his shoulder as he said, "The therapist's report came back perfect. Dr. Chen documented everything we needed: erratic behavior, emotional detachment from the children, potential danger to herself and others. Combined with the post-nuptial agreement she signed, we're golden. Once we file for emergency custody next month citing her mental instability, she'll never see the boys again." Rachel kissed his temple. "What about her family? That grandmother in Detroit?" Trevor laughed, cold and sharp. "Who's going to believe some broke black family from the hood over a Mitchell? My father's lawyers will bury anyone she tries to get help from." Every word hit me like a physical blow. Dr. Chen was in on it. The therapy sessions were evidence gathering. The post-nuptial agreement was a trap. My postpartum depression, my genuine struggle, had been weaponized into a legal strategy to steal my children. Rachel said something that made my blood freeze. "When do we tell the boys I'm their new mommy?" Trevor laughed. "Give it 6 months after the custody transfer. Kids that young won't remember her anyway." If you discovered the person you married was living a double life in your own home, would you confront immediately or gather evidence? Drop a comment. What would you do in my shoes? I sat in that car, shaking with rage so pure it felt like electricity, and I made a decision. They wanted war? I was about to teach these privileged monsters what a Detroit woman does when you threaten her children. My grandmother taught me that when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time, and then show them who you really are. The coffee shop in 5 Points smelled like espresso and determination. Janice Porter sat across from me. Her natural hair pulled back in a professional bun, her eyes sharp as she reviewed the Nanny cam footage on her tablet. "Tanya," she said quietly, "this is bad, but it's also solid gold. They're confessing to conspiracy on camera." She looked up. "How strong are you? Because what we need to do next will hurt like hell before it gets better." Janice and I met at Howard University. She was pre-law, I was pre-nursing. We stayed close through the years, and when she moved to Denver to practice family law, we'd meet for drinks occasionally. She specialized in high-conflict custody cases, representing women fighting powerful men. "They've set you up perfectly," Janice explained, pulling up the post-nuptial agreement on her laptop. "This clause here about mental fitness determining custody, combined with Dr. Chen's evaluations, they can argue you're a danger to the children. The medication she prescribed creates a paper trail suggesting serious psychiatric issues." My coffee went cold while she explained the trap. The therapy sessions were building a case file. The post-nuptial agreement I'd signed made custody contingent on psychological fitness evaluations controlled by Trevor's chosen therapist. The timing of Rachel's arrival wasn't coincidence. It was calculated to document my inability to care for the children. "How do I fight this?" I asked. Janice leaned forward. "We document everything they're doing before they know we're on to them. You go home tonight and act like nothing's changed. You keep that camera running. You record every conversation you can legally record. We need to catch them in the act of conspiracy." "How long?" 3 weeks minimum. We need patterns, multiple instances, clear evidence of premeditation." The thought of going home and pretending for 3 more weeks made me physically ill. But I understood. Rushing and emotional would lose me my sons. Being strategic would save them. That night, I had to go home and act normal. Trevor was in our bedroom when I arrived, and I had to let him hold me, kiss me, tell me about his boring day at home with the boys. When he pulled me into bed and made love to me, slowly with the kind of fake tenderness I now recognized as performance, I responded like I always did. I moaned in the right places. I whispered his name. And when he fell asleep satisfied, I slipped into the bathroom and cried silently in the shower, scrubbing my skin until it hurt, trying to wash away the feeling of being intimate with my enemy. I installed 2 additional cameras, one in the nursery, one in Trevor's home office. Janice connected me with a forensic accountant to track our finances. Within 48 hours, we discovered Trevor had opened 3 accounts I didn't know about and had been transferring money systematically since the twins were born. "He's planning to clean you out," the accountant explained. "Leave you broke so you can't afford to fight the custody battle." I started documenting everything in a secure cloud account Janice set up. Photos of medications Dr. Chen prescribed, recordings of therapy sessions where she asked leading questions, screenshots of bank transfers. Every text message from Rachel suggesting I was struggling or not myself. Have you ever had to smile at someone who was betraying you? Had to pretend everything was fine while planning your escape? Tell me in the comments how you survived that kind of psychological warfare. Janice's plan was 3 weeks of documentation, recording every interaction, tracking every financial transaction, building an airtight case. But on day 4, Rachel knocked on my bathroom door while I was getting ready for work. "Tanya, honey, we need to talk," she said, her voice syrupy with false concern. "Trevor and I are worried about you. Dr. Chen thinks you might need to take some time off work, maybe check into a facility that can help with your postpartum issues. We love you, and we want what's best for you and the boys." She said it like she was doing me a favor, like she wasn't trying to institutionalize me so she could steal my children. I looked at her reflection in the mirror and said, "You're probably right. I have been struggling. Maybe I do need more help." Her smile was triumphant. She had no idea I was recording every word. For 21 days, I played the perfect victim, crying on cue, missing feedings, acting unstable, while secretly documenting every move they made to bury me. Every morning I put on the mask, the overwhelmed mother, the unstable wife, the woman falling apart. I burned dinner on purpose. I forgot to change Michael's diaper. I left bottles unwashed in the sink. And every time Trevor exchanged a knowing glance with Rachel, every time they whispered about my deterioration, I smiled inside because I was 3 moves ahead, and they had no idea the game board had changed. "You're doing great," Janice told me during our secret meetings at her office. "The more they document your instability, the more it proves their plan to fabricate evidence. Keep going." It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Watching Rachel comfort my crying babies while I pretended to be too out of it to help. Listening to Trevor call his lawyer discussing involuntary commitment options. Sitting through Dr. Chen's sessions where she suggested medications that would make me genuinely unstable. But I learned things. I learned Rachel had been texting Trevor for 6 months before she randomly called asking to stay with us. I learned Dr. Ian Chen was being paid $5,000 per evaluation by Mitchell Properties, off the books, cash transfers that violated every medical ethics rule. I learned Trevor had already drafted divorce papers citing my mental illness and seeking full custody. The forensic accountant discovered Trevor had moved $340,000 from our joint accounts into offshore holdings, money I'd helped earn during our marriage, disappearing piece by piece. "This is financial abuse on top of everything else," Janice explained. "He's ensuring you can't afford to fight him." On day 12, I found something that changed the entire case. In Trevor's locked desk drawer, combination found via Nanny cam watching him open it, I found a file labeled M. Chen Settlement 2019. Inside were legal documents showing that Trevor had done this before. Monica Chen, Dr. Patricia Chen's younger sister, had married Trevor in 2018, gotten pregnant, been declared mentally unfit by her own sister's evaluation, lost custody of her daughter in a nasty divorce, and received a $50,000 settlement to stay silent about the whole thing. Her daughter, Lily, was now 5 years old and living full-time with Trevor's parents. Monica had no custody, no contact, and according to the paperwork, she'd been institutionalized for 6 months after the divorce. The pattern was clear. Trevor married women, got them pregnant, used his family's money and connections to destroy their credibility, stole their children, and his family lawyer made it all disappear. I called Janice immediately. "How fast can you find Monica Chen?" I asked. "Because I think we just found the witness who's going to bury them all." Trevor started avoiding intimacy. "I was too fragile," he said, kissing my forehead like I was a child instead of his wife. But one night, drunk on overconfidence and wine, he pulled me into the bedroom with rough urgency. "I miss my wife," he slurred, his hands possessive and demanding. He made love to me like he was claiming territory, and I let him, playing the role of grateful, desperate woman. Afterward, as he snored beside me, I retrieved his phone, fingerprint unlock while he slept, and forwarded myself 6 months of text messages between him and Rachel. Evidence of an affair that started before she even came to help. Evidence that destroyed their entire timeline. The text messages were damning. Rachel to Trevor in March 2024. "Can't wait to finally be together. 6 more months of playing helpful friend, then we get everything. The boys, the house, the life we deserve." Trevor's response, "Patience, baby. Once the custody transfer is complete, she'll be too broken to fight back. My dad's lawyers will make sure she never sees Mason and Michael again." What would you sacrifice temporarily to win permanently? Would you play weak to strike strong? Comment below about a time you had to be strategic instead of emotional. They say the enemy of your enemy is your friend. But what Trevor didn't know is that the women he destroyed were about to become his worst nightmare. Monica Chen sat across from me in a protected conference room at Janice's law firm, her hands shaking as she showed me photos of her daughter Lily, a little girl with Monica's eyes who didn't remember her mother's face. "He told everyone I was crazy," Monica whispered. "He had his parents pay my own sister to write reports saying I was dangerous. I lost everything, my daughter, my nursing license, 2 years of my life in a facility I didn't need to be in. And when I finally got out, they offered me money to disappear." She looked up, tears streaming. "Don't let him do this to you, Tanya. Fight back with everything you have." Janice had tracked Monica down in Colorado Springs, where she was working as a medical assistant, the only job she could get after losing her nursing license due to the mental health concerns her own sister had documented. "They destroyed my credibility completely," Monica explained. "Dr. Chen wrote evaluations saying I had delusions, that I was a danger to my daughter, that I needed long-term psychiatric care. Trevor's lawyers used it to get emergency custody, then full custody, and by the time I was released from the facility and cleared by independent doctors, Lily didn't know who I was." She'd been fighting for 5 years to see her daughter. Trevor's parents had adopted Lily legally, and every attempt Monica made to regain custody was blocked by mountains of expert testimony from Dr. Chen. "My own sister sold me out for Mitchell money," Monica said bitterly. "Patricia got a consultant position at Mitchell Properties worth $150,000 a year. All she had to do was evaluate the women Trevor married and find them unstable." Janice pulled up a document. "I found 3 other cases, different Mitchell men, Trevor's cousin, his uncle, his father. Same pattern, marry women, get them pregnant, have Dr. Chen or affiliated therapists declare them unfit, take the children, pay settlements." "How is this legal?" I asked. "It's not," Janice said. "It's fraud, conspiracy, and medical malpractice. But the Mitchell family has enough money and connections to make it disappear. Until now." Monica became our star witness. She had documentation of everything: the falsified evaluations, the settlement agreement, emails from Trevor bragging about the strategy to his cousin. She'd been collecting evidence for years, hoping for a chance to expose them. "I'll testify," Monica said firmly. "I'll tell everything. If it helps you keep your sons, and maybe gets me a chance to see Lily again, I'll do whatever it takes." We spent the next week building our case. Monica's testimony, my nanny cam footage, financial records showing the payoffs, text messages proving premeditation, Dr. Chen's ethics violations, the whole conspiracy laid out in meticulous detail. That night, I returned home to find Trevor in our bedroom, anxious and needy. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice tight. "You said you had a doctor's appointment, but I called Dr. Chen and she said you canceled." He approached me with suspicion in his eyes, but I disarmed him the way I'd learned, with submission. "I'm sorry," I said softly, moving closer. "I was scared to tell you. I went to see a different therapist. Dr. Chen makes me feel judged, and I needed to talk to someone who didn't know you." I kissed him, slow and convincing. "I'm trying, Trevor. I'm really trying to be better for you and the boys." His tension melted. He believed me because he wanted to, because I was playing the role he'd written for me. And as he pulled me into bed, as he whispered promises of getting through this together, I thought about Monica, about Lily, about my sons sleeping down the hall, and I held him closer, not from love, but from the certainty that his days of destroying women were numbered. Have you ever met someone who went through what you're going through and realized you weren't crazy? That moment when someone validates your experience and you know you're not alone? Share that story below. 1 week before Thanksgiving, Janice called with news that made my heart stop. "Tanya, Trevor just filed emergency custody papers. He's claiming you had a psychotic break this morning, threatened him with a knife, and the police need to remove you from the home immediately for the safety of the children." My blood went cold. But I was at work all morning. I have witnesses, badge logs, everything. "I know," Janice said grimly, "which means he either thinks you're too broken to defend yourself or he's panicking because he knows something's wrong. Either way, they're accelerating the timeline. We need to strike first, and we need to strike now." She paused. "Are you ready to go nuclear?" I looked at the file in front of me. All the evidence, all the recordings, Monica's testimony, everything. "Let's burn it all down," I said. They filed for emergency custody on a Tuesday. By Friday morning, I'd filed a lawsuit that would expose 3 generations of the Mitchell family's crimes against women. The Denver County courtroom smelled like old wood and anxiety. Trevor sat at his table with Gregory Hartman, confident and composed in his $5,000 suit. Rachel sat in the gallery, her hand over her mouth like she was the victim. When I walked in with Janice, Monica, and a lawyer from the Colorado Attorney General's office, Trevor's face went pale. "Your Honor," Janice began, "before we address Mr. Mitchell's spurious emergency custody filing, we'd like to submit evidence of a conspiracy to commit fraud, parental alienation, and medical malpractice." Judge Catherine Morrison was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd built a reputation for not tolerating games in her courtroom. She looked at the stack of evidence Janice presented: 300 pages of documents, USB drives with video and audio recordings, financial records, medical files. "This is highly irregular," Hartman objected. "Your Honor, we're here for an emergency custody hearing, not—" "Mr. Hartman," Judge Morrison cut him off, "I'll decide what's relevant in my courtroom. Ms. Porter, you have 30 minutes to present your evidence." Janice started with the nanny cam footage. The courtroom went silent as Trevor and Rachel's voices filled the space, discussing their plan to institutionalize me, steal my children, and erase me from their lives. Trevor's face went from confident to panicked. Rachel stood up like she was going to run, but a bailiff moved to block the door. "This conversation took place on November 3rd, Janice explained, while Mrs. Mitchell was at work saving lives at Denver Health Medical Center. Her badge logs confirm she entered the hospital at 6:47 a.m. and didn't leave until 7:23 p.m. Next came Monica's testimony. She took the stand with quiet dignity, explaining how Trevor had used the exact same tactics on her 5 years earlier, how Dr. Chen had falsified evaluations, how she'd lost her daughter and her freedom. "My sister betrayed me for Mitchell money," Monica said, her voice breaking. "She wrote reports saying I was delusional, dangerous, a threat to my own child, and now she's doing the same thing to Tanya." Hartman tried to discredit Monica, suggesting she was bitter and unstable, but Janice was ready with independent psychiatric evaluations from 3 separate doctors, all confirming Monica was completely mentally healthy and had been for years. During a recess, Trevor cornered me in the hallway outside the courtroom. His charm was gone, replaced by cold fury. "You're destroying our family," he hissed, grabbing my arm hard enough to hurt. "Those boys need stability, and you're making a scene." He pulled me closer, his face inches from mine, and I smelled the desperation on him. "I loved you, Tanya. I can still protect you if you stop this now." For just a second, looking into his eyes, I remembered the man I thought I'd married. Then I remembered Monica and Lily and every woman before me. I pulled my arm free. "You never loved me, Trevor. You love the idea of breaking me, but I'm from Detroit and we don't break. We break back." The Attorney General's representative testified about the financial investigation, shell companies, offshore accounts, a pattern of payments to women who'd married Mitchell men and then mysteriously lost custody of their children. "We've identified at least 8 cases over 20 years, the AG's lawyer explained, a systematic pattern of exploitation, fraud, and abuse of the legal system. Judge Morrison's face grew darker with each piece of evidence. When the financial records showed Dr. Chen receiving $5,000 cash payments from Mitchell Properties for each evaluation, she actually shook her head in disgust. Have you ever stood up to someone powerful and felt the fear and exhilaration at the same time? Have you ever been the underdog who came back swinging? Tell me in the comments about your moment of standing your ground. When the judge watched the Nanny cam footage, Trevor and Rachel discussing their plan to institutionalize me, their affair, the falsified medical records, his face darkened with every second. "Mr. Mitchell," he said slowly, "I'm denying your emergency custody motion and granting Mrs. Mitchell primary physical custody of the minor children pending full investigation. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order requiring you to vacate the marital home immediately." Trevor jumped to his feet. "You can't do this. Do you know who my family is?" The judge's eyes went ice cold. "I know exactly who your family is, Mr. Mitchell, and that's precisely why I'm also ordering a full audit of your family's trust and all custody arrangements involving Mitchell family members for the past 20 years. This court is adjourned." As Trevor was escorted out, still screaming threats, Rachel ran. She literally ran from the courtroom like a coward. But she didn't get far. 2 police officers were waiting in the hall with questions about her role in the conspiracy. Monica touched my shoulder as we watched them lead Rachel away. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." But I knew it wasn't over. Trevor's parents had money, power, and connections. The real war was just beginning. Winning custody was just round 1. Exposing the Mitchell family empire built on stolen children and silenced women was the real fight. The press conference was held at the Colorado State Capitol. News cameras and reporters packed into the hall. 5 women stood beside me, Monica and 4 others who'd come forward after seeing news coverage of my case. Different races, different backgrounds, but the same story. Married Mitchell men, had children, were systematically destroyed and separated from their kids. "We're not gold diggers," I said into the microphones. "We're mothers who were targeted, manipulated, and discarded by a family that treats women as incubators and children as possessions." The media attention was overwhelming. CNN picked up the story. The New York Times ran a feature titled, "Colorado's Custody Conspiracy: How One Wealthy Family Weaponized Mental Health to Steal Children." My face was everywhere. The Attorney General's office expanded their investigation. They subpoenaed records from Mitchell Properties, Dr. Chen's practice, the family's lawyers, and every trust and shell company connected to the Mitchells. What they found was staggering. Over 23 years, Mitchell family men had married 14 women. 11 of those women had lost custody of their children under suspicious circumstances. 9 had been institutionalized or declared mentally unfit. 7 had received settlement payments requiring them to never speak about their experiences. The pattern was consistent and calculated. Marry women without family money or strong support systems. Get them pregnant. Use family connections to manipulate the legal and medical systems. Take the children. Pay the mothers to disappear. It's a eugenics program disguised as family law, one prosecutor told me privately. They're essentially breeding children and discarding the mothers like they're surrogate carriers. Dr. Patricia Chen lost her medical license within 2 weeks. The Colorado Medical Board found she'd violated ethics rules in at least 9 cases, accepting payments from the Mitchell family while evaluating their wives and presenting biased, falsified reports to courts. Rachel cut a deal. In exchange for testimony against Trevor and reduced charges, she admitted to everything: the affair that started 6 months before she came to Denver, the plan to replace me, her role in documenting my instability. She claimed Trevor manipulated her, that she didn't understand how serious the conspiracy was. I didn't believe her for a second, but her testimony was devastating. Trevor violated the restraining order 1 week after the hearing. He appeared at the house at 2 a.m., drunk and desperate, pounding on the door. Through the video intercom, I watched him crying. "Please, Tanya, I made mistakes, but I love you. I love our boys. Don't do this." Part of me, the part that remembered falling in love with him, wanted to believe the tears were real, but I'd learned the difference between remorse and regret at getting caught. "Go home, Trevor," I said calmly. "The police are already on their way." He slammed his fist against the door. "You'll regret this. My family will destroy you." The man I'd married was fully gone, replaced by the monster he'd always been underneath. Trevor was arrested that night. Bail was set at $500,000, which his parents immediately paid, but the conditions were strict: no contact with me, the children, or any of the other women involved in the case. His parents, Richard and Patricia Mitchell, were named in the civil lawsuit Monica and I filed jointly. We were suing for custody fraud, emotional distress, conspiracy, and financial damages. The amount, $47 million. When did you realize someone's apology was about avoiding consequences, not actual remorse? How did you tell the difference between real change and manipulation? Share your wisdom below. The Attorney General's office called me 3 days before Christmas with news that made me sit down hard. "Mrs. Mitchell, we've uncovered something significant in the financial investigation. It appears Trevor and his family have been using a network of shell companies to hide assets and pay settlements to women they've silenced over the years. The total we've found so far is approximately $8.7 million in payoffs." I tried to process the number. How many women? At least 17 that we can document. But here's where it gets worse. One of them, a woman named Jennifer Martinez, who was married to Trevor's cousin in 2015, filed a police report claiming her baby didn't die of SIEDS, like the family claimed. She believed the child was taken and given to a family member who couldn't conceive. The investigation was buried by the Mitchell family's lawyer, the same Gregory Hartman representing Trevor now. My hands went numb. "Are you telling me they might have killed a baby?" The investigator's voice was grim. "We're telling you this family will do anything to maintain their legacy. Mrs. Mitchell, we believe you and your sons may be in danger. We'd like to offer you protective custody." They wanted to take my children to preserve their legacy, so I went into hiding to preserve their lives. The safe house was a nondescript rental in suburban Aurora, nothing like the Cherry Creek mansion, but infinitely safer. I watched Mason and Michael play with secondhand toys on a worn carpet, and I thought about all the luxury I'd traded for their safety. They were happy. They didn't miss the marble floors or designer nursery. They just needed their mother. And for the first time in months, I was fully present, not working 3 jobs or fighting for survival, just being mom. The federal marshals assigned to protect us were professional and kind. 2 agents rotated shifts, maintaining constant surveillance. We couldn't go anywhere without clearance. My nursing career was on hold. My entire world shrunk to 3 rooms and a backyard I could only use during daylight hours. But my sons were safe. That was everything. The investigation expanded daily. The Attorney General's office had convened a grand jury to examine the Mitchell family's activities: financial crimes, custody fraud, medical malpractice. And now, potentially, something far worse. What happened to Jennifer Martinez's baby? Jennifer came to the safe house one afternoon, escorted by FBI agents. She was 34 now, a social worker in Pueblo, and she'd spent 7 years believing her daughter had died. "They told me it was SIDS," Jennifer said, her hands shaking around a coffee mug. "Emma was 4 months old. I woke up and she wasn't breathing. But the autopsy report felt wrong. The funeral felt wrong. I kept telling people something didn't add up, and Trevor's family kept saying I was hysterical with grief, that I needed psychiatric help." She'd been institutionalized for 6 months. When she got out, Trevor had divorced her and remarried within a year, some cousin from the family, keeping it all internal. "I've spent 7 years wondering if I was crazy," Jennifer said, tears streaming. "If I imagined the discrepancies in the medical reports, if my grief made me paranoid." "You weren't crazy," I told her, taking her hand. "They gaslit you to cover their crimes." The grand jury indicted Trevor's parents, Donald and Patricia Mitchell, on conspiracy charges. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showing payments to adoption brokers, communications about suitable inventory, references to children by code names rather than real names. It was systematic, calculated, evil. Rachel's plea deal moved forward despite her hospitalization. From her hospital bed, she gave video testimony explaining everything: the affair, the plan, the threats from Trevor's father when she got cold feet. "Donald Mitchell told me that women who betrayed the family disappeared," Rachel said in the recording. "He said I could either help them or become another statistic. I was terrified." Her testimony connected all the pieces: Trevor's affair timeline, Dr. Chen's payments, the custody strategy, everything. Nights were the hardest. After the twins were asleep, I'd lie in bed alone, and my body remembered things my mind wanted to forget. The way Trevor used to hold me. The intimacy I'd believed was real, the future I'd imagined. I wasn't mourning him. I was mourning the woman I'd been, the naive trust I'd had. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You look beautiful, even in hiding." My blood went cold. How did anyone know where I was? I called my security detail immediately, and they traced the number to a burner phone. Trevor had found me. They moved us the next morning. The new safe house was in Thornton, farther from downtown, more isolated, extra security measures, panic buttons in every room. "How long do we have to live like this?" I asked the lead marshal. "Until the trial," he said, "or until we're certain the threat is neutralized." Monica visited when she could, bringing Lily to play with the boys. Watching our children together, kids who should have grown up as family if the Mitchells hadn't destroyed everything, was bittersweet. "We're going to win," Monica said one afternoon, watching the kids play. "We have to, for them." How do you heal from betrayal while still fighting the war? How do you protect your children's innocence while dealing with adult horrors? Tell me how you managed both. Rachel's plea deal testimony was scheduled for early January. The prosecutors needed her statement to connect all the pieces: her affair with Trevor, Dr. Chen's falsified records, the plan to institutionalize me, everything. 2 days before her testimony, I got a call from the DA's office that made my world tilt. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm sorry to inform you that Rachel Morrison was found unresponsive in her apartment this morning. She's alive but in critical condition. It appears to be an overdose, but we're investigating whether it was intentional or assisted." My heart pounded. "You think someone tried to kill her?" "We think someone wanted to make sure she never testified. And Mrs. Mitchell, we found something in her apartment, a handwritten letter addressed to you. She wrote, 'I'm sorry. They said they'd hurt my mother if I testified. Trevor's father told me exactly what they'd do. I can't be brave like you, but I left everything, recordings, documents, proof, in a storage unit. She left us the key code.'" Without Rachel's testimony, the case against the Mitchell family weakened, but with her hidden evidence, we might have everything we needed to bring them down permanently. Rachel's cowardice saved her life, but her guilt saved the case. In a storage unit in Commerce City, she documented every crime the Mitchell family committed. The storage unit smelled like cardboard and secrets. Janice, 2 FBI agents, and I stood among boxes filled with 20 years of evidence. Rachel had been documenting everything since she started her affair with Trevor, maybe as insurance, maybe from guilt. File after file showed the pattern. Trevor's father, Donald, would identify suitable women for his son and nephews to marry. Women who were ambitious but vulnerable, often women of color or from working-class backgrounds. They'd love bomb them, impregnate them, then destroy them systematically using the family's wealth and connections. Box after box revealed the scope, spreadsheets tracking acquisitions, their term for marriages, financial records showing payments to corrupt therapists, lawyers, and judges, photographs of children with notes about their placement with paying families. Rachel had recorded conversations with Donald Mitchell where he explained the family business with chilling clarity. "We provide a service," he said on one recording. "Wealthy families who can't conceive get healthy children with good genetics. The mothers are compensated and move on. Everyone wins. Except the mothers who were destroyed, the children who were stolen, the families torn apart. One file was labeled Jennifer Martinez, Disposal Protocol. Inside were medical records showing Emma hadn't died of SIDS at all. She'd been sedated, declared dead by a doctor on the Mitchell payroll, and transported to a family in San Diego who'd paid $2.8 million for a healthy infant girl. Emma was alive, 7 years old, living under another name with people who believed they'd legally adopted her. Among Rachel's belongings, I found something that made me sick, a journal where she documented intimate details of her affair with Trevor, including entries from when he was still sleeping with me. "He says he has to maintain the illusion with Tanya," one entry read. "He made love to her this morning, then called me after she left for work and said he was thinking about me the whole time. It hurts, but I understand. We have to be patient." Reading about my marriage as performance, my intimacy as obligation, my husband's mind on another woman while his body was with me, it was violation, layered on violation. I wanted to throw the journal across the storage unit. Instead, I handed it to the FBI agent. "Evidence," I said flatly. The recordings were damning. Rachel had worn a wire during multiple conversations with Trevor and his parents, documenting their plans not just for me, but for future targets. The Mitchell family operation was ongoing, systematic, and protected by enough money and connections to have survived for decades. "This is the largest custody fraud and trafficking case in Colorado history," one FBI agent said, looking overwhelmed. "Maybe in the country." Janice found contracts, actual sale agreements for children. Mason and Michael were listed in a file marked December 2024 delivery. The buyers were a Swiss couple willing to pay $2 million for twin males, 6 months, excellent health, mixed race. My sons had a price tag, a delivery date, buyers waiting. I had to sit down before I fell down. Have you ever discovered something you wish you could unknow? Something that changed how you remembered everything? How did you process that kind of retroactive betrayal? At the bottom of the last box, I found a USB drive labeled Insurance. Play if something happens to me. The FBI agent inserted it into a laptop, and we watched a video Rachel had recorded 2 weeks before her overdose. She looked terrified, makeup streaked with tears. My name is Rachel Morrison, and if you're watching this, it means they got to me. I'm recording this because I need the truth to survive, even if I don't. She took a shaky breath. Everything Tanya thinks Trevor did to her is true, but it's worse. Trevor didn't just want custody of his sons, he wanted to sell them. His parents had been running an illegal adoption ring for decades, using their family members' children and children taken from unstable mothers. Mason and Michael were already promised to a couple in Switzerland for $2 million. I found the contract. I told Trevor I couldn't be part of taking those babies from Tanya, and that's when he threatened me. He said if I didn't help him, I'd end up like Monica's baby, disappeared. The video cut to shaky footage of a document on Trevor's computer, a sale agreement for twin male infants 6 months old with delivery scheduled for December 20th, 3 days from now. My sons weren't just pawns in a custody battle, they were merchandise in a trafficking operation, and I had 72 hours to stop them from disappearing forever. The FBI descended on the Mitchell family compound in Boulder like an avenging army. Black SUVs, armed agents, search warrants that covered every property the family owned. I watched from a command center as they streamed footage from body cameras, agents discovering files, computers, evidence of crimes that went back to Trevor's grandfather. The legacy wasn't real estate. It was trafficking children from women they deemed unworthy to families who'd pay premium prices for healthy babies with good genetics. The December 20th delivery date wasn't just about Mason and Michael. 3 other children were scheduled for placement that week, including a 6-month-old girl whose mother had just been committed to a psychiatric facility in Fort Collins. The FBI moved fast. They arrested Donald and Patricia Mitchell at their Boulder estate. Patricia tried to flee out the back door and was tackled by agents in her own garden. Donald demanded his lawyer and refused to speak, but his computers told the story his mouth wouldn't. Trevor, sensing the walls closing in, made a run for it. He'd been staying at a friend's cabin in Breckenridge, supposedly respecting the restraining order. But when the FBI went to arrest him, the cabin was empty. His phone was off, his passport was missing. He's going to try to leave the country, the lead investigator told me. We've alerted airports, border crossings, and international authorities. But if he has help and resources, he might slip through. My blood went ice cold. He wouldn't try to take Mason and Michael, would he? You have agents at the safe house? 3 agents, fully armed. Your sons are secure. But I couldn't breathe easy until Trevor was in custody. For 18 hours, he was in the wind. The FBI tracked credit card usage to a gas station near the Wyoming border. Then nothing. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Just paced the safe house living room while Mason and Michael napped, oblivious to the danger closing in around them. Trevor made one last desperate play. He showed up at the safe house, somehow found it again, this time calm, collected, the charming man I'd fallen for. Tanya, please. We can fix this. Take the boys and run. I have money hidden, passports, everything we need. We can start over in another country, just the 4 of us. He reached for me, his touch familiar and revolting. I know I made mistakes, but I love you. I've always loved you. For a moment, looking into his eyes, I saw the man I'd married, and then I saw Monica, Jennifer, Rachel, and 17 other women he'd helped destroy. I stepped back. You don't love anyone, Trevor. You collect people like properties and discard them when they're no longer useful. But I'm not a house you can sell or a woman you can break. I'm a mother protecting her children from a monster. His mask finally shattered. The rage underneath poured out. You'll never keep them. My family always wins. Those boys are Mitchell legacy, and you're just what, Trevor? I interrupted. Say it. Say what you really think of me. You're nothing, he screamed. A broke nurse from Detroit who got lucky. I looked at you twice. You think you belong in my world? You think your sons belong with you instead of a real family that can give them the life they deserve? Behind him, FBI agents moved in. Trevor Mitchell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, kidnapping, and fraud. As they cuffed him, he looked at me with pure hatred. I should have gotten rid of you like the others, he snarled. That confession on FBI recording sealed everything. When did you realize you were stronger than the person trying to break you? When did you understand your worth wasn't determined by their treatment? Share your awakening moment. The FBI raid recovered 17 children who'd been illegally adopted through the Mitchell network, including Jennifer Martinez's daughter, now 7 years old, living with a family in California who'd paid $3 million and had no idea the baby was stolen, not legally adopted. The reunions were heartbreaking and beautiful, but as I held Mason and Michael, safe in my arms, Janice pulled me aside with complicated news. Tanya, there's something you need to know about the investigation. When they searched Trevor's parents' estate, they found records showing that Trevor had another child, a daughter, from before Monica. Her name is Sophia. She's 8 years old, and she was sold to a family in England. We're working on extradition and custody, but... She hesitated. Trevor's will names you as guardian of any children he fathered. If we get Sophia back, legally, she's your responsibility. Are you prepared to raise your husband's daughter from before you even met him? I looked at my sons, thought about all the stolen children, and I knew there was only one answer. Bring her home. Every child he helped steal deserves to know their real family. I'll fight for all of them. They built an empire on stolen children. We built a family from the wreckage they left behind. The courthouse steps in downtown Denver were packed with cameras and supporters on the day of Trevor's sentencing. 17 mothers stood together, holding photos of their children, some reunited, some still fighting, all refusing to be silent anymore. When the judge read 35 years and Trevor's face crumbled, I felt no satisfaction, just exhaustion, just relief, just the bone-deep need to go home to my children and start healing. Trevor's parents each received 25 years. Dr. Patricia Chen got 15 years and lost her medical license permanently. Gregory Hartman was disbarred and sentenced to 10 years for his role in the conspiracy. The trials lasted 8 months. I testified 3 times, each time reliving the trauma, the betrayal, the fear. But each time, I looked at the jury and told my truth with clarity and strength. They thought my background made me weak, I said during my final testimony. They thought being a black woman from Detroit meant I'd accept their abuse quietly. They were wrong. The jury believed us. All of us. Sophia came home 6 months after Trevor's arrest. She was a tiny 8-year-old with his blue eyes and a heartbreaking wariness around adults. The British family who'd raised her had believed she was legally adopted through an agency. They were devastated to learn the truth, but they cooperated fully with the custody transfer. "Are you my new mummy?" Sophia asked when we first met, her British accent strange and sweet. "I'm Tanya," I said gently. "And I'm going to take care of you if you'll let me. You have 2 little brothers who can't wait to meet you." She was scared, confused, grieving the only family she'd known. But slowly, day by day, she started to trust, started to smile, started to call me Mum in that British way that made me cry every time. Monica regained full custody of Lily. The courts reversed the previous judgment based on evidence of fraud and falsified evaluations. Watching Monica hold her daughter for the first time in 5 years, both of them crying and laughing, was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. We started the Brooks Mitchell Foundation, named for my maiden name and the family that tried to destroy us. The foundation provided legal services, counseling, and financial support to families fighting custody fraud. "We're turning their evil into something good," Monica said at the opening ceremony. "Every family we help is a middle finger to the Mitchell legacy." My divorce from Trevor was finalized while he sat in prison. I reclaimed my maiden name. Tanya Brooks. Mason and Michael became Brooks boys too. Sophia chose to keep Mitchell as her middle name, but took Brooks as her last name. New beginning, she said seriously. New family. 9 months after Trevor's arrest, I went on a date. My first since the divorce was finalized. Marcus was a pediatrician at Denver Health, someone I'd worked with for years who'd supported me through everything without asking for anything in return. Over dinner at a quiet restaurant far from Cherry Creek, he reached across the table and took my hand. Tanya, I'm not trying to rush you. I know you're healing. But I need you to know, I see you, not as a victim, not as a survivor, just as the incredible woman you've always been. His touch was gentle, respectful, nothing like the possessive ownership I'd mistaken for love with Trevor. Can I kiss you? He asked. The question itself, the consent, the respect, made my eyes water. Yes, I whispered. The kiss was soft, sweet, tentative. When we pulled apart, I realized I was smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in over a year. Rachel completed her plea deal and probation. She moved to Oregon, away from everything, and started working as a substance abuse counselor. She sent letters apologizing, explaining, asking for nothing. I read them, but never responded. Some betrayals can be understood without being forgiven. How do you learn to trust again after betrayal? How do you open your heart when someone showed you how dangerous vulnerability can be? Tell me about your journey back to hope. 2 weeks before Christmas, exactly 1 year after I watched that Nanny cam footage that changed everything, I stood in my new home, a comfortable house in a diverse neighborhood, nothing like the Cherry Creek mansion, watching my sons play with their big sister, Sophia. She'd been shy at first, this little girl torn from everything she knew, but slowly she was healing. Monica and Lily came over for dinner, part of our found family. Rachel, recovered from her overdose and serving probation for her lesser crimes, sent a letter I hadn't opened yet. As I cooked in my kitchen, Marcus arrived with flowers, and my sons ran to him like he'd always been part of our lives. My phone rang, Janice with news. Tanya. The state just passed the Mitchell Act, new legislation protecting parents from the kind of custody fraud you experienced. It's named after your case. You changed the law. You protected countless families who'll never know your name. I hung up and looked around my home. Imperfect, chaotic, full of love, hard-won, and fiercely protected. This wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined. It was better. It was real. They tried to take everything, my children, my sanity, my future. But from the ashes of their cruelty, I built a life they never imagined I deserved. The Brooks Mitchell Foundation headquarters occupied a renovated building in 5 Points, filled with light and hope, and the sounds of families being reunited, mothers being believed, children being protected. My grandmother Dorothy's photo hung in the lobby. She'd passed away 6 months after Trevor's conviction, but she died knowing I'd won, knowing her grandbabies were safe. "You did good, baby," were her last words to me. I carry them every day. 2 years after Trevor's conviction, life looked nothing like the nightmare I'd survived. Mason and Michael were thriving 2.5-year-olds, funny and sweet and completely unaware of how close they'd come to being stolen. Sophia, now 10, was in therapy and slowly healing from her trauma. She'd started calling me Mom without the British accent, and every time she did, my heart grew. The foundation had helped 43 families fight custody fraud cases. We'd won 38 of them. The 5 we lost still kept me up at night, but Janice reminded me constantly, "You can't save everyone, but you're saving more than anyone else has." Monica ran the legal clinic, using her own experience to guide other mothers through the nightmare of fighting powerful families. Lily, now 12, volunteered after school, helping with filing and showing younger kids that there was life after trauma. Jennifer Martinez served on our board. Emma, her daughter who'd been dead for 7 years, was back home and thriving. The reunion had been covered by every major news outlet, and Jennifer used her platform to advocate for stronger adoption laws and accountability. Marcus proposed on a random Tuesday. No grand gesture, just him watching me read bedtime stories to all 3 kids and saying, "I want to do this forever. Marry me. When you're ready, no pressure, but marry me because I love this chaotic, beautiful life we're building." I didn't answer right away. Marriage scared me. The legal binding, the vulnerability, the trust required, but Marcus understood. "I'll wait," he said simply. "However long it takes for you to believe you're safe with me." 3 months later, on a morning when he was making pancakes for the kids and singing off-key, I walked up behind him and said, "Yes." He turned, flower in his hair, and kissed me with joy that tasted like home. We got married in a small ceremony at the foundation, surrounded by survivors who'd become family. Sophia was my maid of honor. Mason and Michael were ring bearers who forgot the rings and had to go back for them twice. It was perfect. I visited Trevor once in prison, 2 years into his sentence. He looked smaller, older, broken. "Why did you come?" he asked through the glass partition. I'd asked myself the same question. "Because I needed to see you as human," I said honestly. "I needed to remember that you're not a monster in a story. You're a man who made terrible choices that hurt real people. And I needed to tell you that your sons are thriving, that Sophia calls me mom now, and that every child you helped steal has been found and returned to their families. Your legacy isn't real estate or wealth. It's the trauma you caused. But my legacy is healing." He cried then, real tears I'd never seen before. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For whatever it's worth, I'm sorry." I stood to leave. "It's worth acknowledging, Trevor, but it doesn't change anything. My life isn't about you anymore." That was the last time I saw him. The Mitchell family empire collapsed. The properties were liquidated, the money distributed to victims as restitution. The family name became synonymous with corruption instead of prestige. My nursing career resumed part-time. I'd missed patient care, missed making a difference in the immediate, tangible way that medicine allows. But now I balanced it with advocacy work, with motherhood, with building a life that was mine. On the 3rd anniversary of the day I watched that Nanny cam footage, I deleted the app. I didn't need it anymore. My home was safe. My children were protected. My life was my own. What would you tell the person who tried to break you if you could see them now? What would you say to the version of yourself who survived them? Drop your message of hope in the comments for anyone fighting their own battle. If this story touched you, if Tanya's journey gave you hope that you can survive your own nightmare, hit that like button right now. Subscribe for more true stories about people who refuse to stay victims. And please, comment below with which part of this story resonated with you most. Was it the betrayal, the fight for justice, the healing, or the new beginning? Remember, anyone who underestimates you because of where you came from, what you've survived, or who you are is about to learn that survival is its own superpower. To every mother fighting for her children, every person rebuilding after betrayal, every survivor who refuses to let trauma define them, you are seen, you are believed, and you are not alone. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story. And Tanya, if you're out there watching, you're a warrior. And your grandmother was right. You did good, baby. You did real good.